Jeffrey Dahmer, or the Milwaukee Monster as he came to be known, was responsible for some of the most heinous killings in American history. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer committed 17 murders, with victims ranging in age from 14 to 31 years old. This is the horrifying story of a cannibalistic serial killer that will keep you up at night. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on May 21, 1960, to a middle-class family. He grew obsessed with all things death at an early age and began collecting and dissecting dead animal corpses. Strangely, Dahmer's father stated that the noises of clanging animal bones oddly enthralled his son. Dahmer's family had relocated to Bath Township, a peaceful Akron, Ohio suburb by the time he was in high school. Dahmer was an outsider there, and he became an alcoholic very soon. He was a heavy drinker at school, frequently concealing beer and strong liquor in his army fatigue jacket. Dahmer would frequently indulge in pranks, such as faking to have seizures in order to fit in. He did this so regularly that pulling off a practical joke became known as doing a Dahmer around the campus. Doing a Dahmer means something entirely different and horrifying today. During this period, Dahmer also discovered he was gay. As his sexuality developed, so did his more bizarre sexual fantasies. Dahmer began dreaming about raping men and was enthralled by the thought of utterly dominating and commanding another person. Dahmer's first killing. Dahmer's control eroded as his violent fantasies got stronger, and he found his first victim just weeks after graduating from high school. Jeffrey Dahmer's parents split the same year he graduated from high school. His father and brother opted to relocate to a nearby motel, but Dahmer and his mother remained at the family home. Whenever Dahmer's mother was away, he had complete authority of the house. On one such occasion in 1978, Dahmer thought, why not take advantage of his newfound freedom? He picked up 18-year-old hitchhiker Stephen Mark Hicks, who was on his way to a rock event in neighboring Lockwood Corners. Dahmer persuaded Hicks to join him for cocktails at his residence before heading to the performance. Hicks attempted to leave after many hours of drinking and jamming to music, which angered Dahmer. In reaction, Dahmer strangled Hicks to death after bludgeoning him from behind with a 10-pound dumbbell. He then undressed Hicks and masturbated on his lifeless body. Dahmer then took Hicks down to his house's crawl space and began dissecting his body. Dahmer then took the bones, ground them into powder, and dissolved the flesh in acid. Time in the military. His first murder would seem almost like an isolated incident. On the surface, Dahmer appeared to be a typical young guy trying to find out what he wanted to do with his life. He temporarily attended Ohio State University, but left after one semester owing to his drinking. Before his drunkenness became an issue, he worked as a combat medic in the United States Army for 2 years. He returned to his grandmother's residence in West Allis, Wisconsin, after receiving an honorable discharge. It was later revealed that Dahmer had drugged and raped 2 other soldiers. Dahmer's crimes continued as a civilian. He perpetrated a slew of heinous sexual offenses, including masturbating in front of minors and drugging and raping men in homosexual bathhouses. The serial killer's trophies. But murder was insufficient. Dahmer began to amass macabre mementos from his victims as well. This practice began with the murder of Anthony Sears, a 24-year-old aspiring model. At a homosexual pub, Sears struck up a conversation with the seemingly innocent Dahmer. Sears was drugged, raped, and finally strangled after returning home with Dahmer. Dahmer would then store Sears' skull and genitals in acetone-filled jars. Dahmer hauled the fragmented bits of Sears with him when he relocated into his own apartment downtown. Dahmer committed the majority of his 17 killings over the next 2 years. He would lure young guys back to his house, frequently paying them to pose naked for him before murdering them. Dahmer would preserve the skulls of his victims as mementos after photographing their bodies and dissolving their skin and bones. He also began experimenting with various strategies for preserving these gruesome souvenirs. He even accidentally burst the head of one of his victims, Edward Smith, when he tried to dry it out in an oven. Attempting to induce a zombie-like state. Dahmer began to experiment with cannibalism about the same period. He saved body parts in the fridge so he could eat them later. Even still, it wasn't enough to fulfill Dahmer's twisted desires. He even started drilling holes in the brains of his victims while they were still drugged and alive. He'd then pour hydrochloric acid into his victim's brain, hoping to place the individual in a permanent, unresisting, and subservient state. He tried this on a number of victims, including Synthesomphone. As a result, in addition to being drugged, the kid was unable to interact with authorities and request assistance. Dahmer's last almost victim. Dahmer went after Tracy Edwards, 32, on July 22, 1991. Dahmer, like many of his victims, offered Edwards money to pose for naked pictures at his apartment. To Edwards' surprise, Dahmer chained him and threatened him with a knife, ordering him to strip. Dahmer then mocked Edwards, saying he was going to devour his heart. Dahmer swayed back and forth, his ear on Edwards' chest. Terrified, Edwards tried to calm Dahmer down by promising he was his buddy and that he'd watch TV with him. While Dahmer was preoccupied, Edwards hit him in the face and fled, avoiding becoming another of Jeffrey Dahmer's murder victims. Caught at last. Edwards called down a police cruiser and led the authorities to Dahmer's flat. There, a police officer uncovered images of dismembered bodies that were undoubtedly taken in the same apartment where they were currently standing. "These are for real," the cop who found the images stated as he handed them to his colleague. The next thing Dahmer recalls hearing is "cuff him." Closer assessment of the flat revealed 4 decapitated heads in the kitchen and a total of 7 skulls, several of which were painted. They discovered various body parts in the refrigerator, including 2 human hearts. They discovered a 57-gallon drum in the bedroom and instantly became aware of a repulsive smell radiating from it. When they peeked inside, they saw 3 severed human torsos dissolved in acid. The flat was filled with so many human body parts that had been kept and organized with such care that the medical examiner subsequently stated that it was more like dismantling someone's museum than a crime scene. A murderer murdered. During his stay in jail, Dahmer had frequent suicidal thoughts, but he would never have the opportunity to commit suicide. On November 28, 1994, in the prison restroom, a fellow inmate and convicted killer called Christopher Scarver beat Dahmer to death with a metal bar. According to Scarver, Dahmer made no attempt to fight him off or make a sound throughout the attack, as he seemed to accept his fate, and subsequently closed the book on the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. That's a wrap for this video. Did you find the story as bone-chilling as we did? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.